Hello, welcome back to our latest We Are Sunderland briefing with myself, Dom Shaw, and Scott Wilson, both from We Are Sunderland. And we can get the diaries in order, we can get dates in place, we can start planning the next 9, 10, 11, 12 months because the fixtures are out and we're going to pick our way through Sunderland's fixture list. And we're also going to talk transfers as well after Kristjaan Speakman said a few interesting bits and bobs this week. Just a reminder, if you haven't already, you can still subscribe to We Are Sunderland, just £1 for 6 months. Sorry, which is well worth your money. I think that'll take you through the entire. Well, I don't think, I know, and I absolutely know that that's well worth your money. That's £1 for 6 months. That'll take you through the summer transfer window and obviously in to the start of the Premier League season. And do subscribe to the YouTube channel as well if you haven't already. Just press the button below the screen, rate and review if you're listening on your podcast platforms. We have fixtures, Scott, and we have, dare I say it, a kind start. So we're going to get through it all, obviously.
Yeah.
But not at all. We're not going to analyse every 38, all of the 38 fixtures. But West Ham home, Burnley away, Brentford home, Crystal Palace away, Villa home, Forest away. There's no easy game and all that, getting your management hat on. But that isn't far away from being as kind as you could have hoped for.
Yeah. So, a couple of things there. I mean, one reaction to all of this is, the fixtures are out. Everybody's playing everybody twice, home and away, pot of the luck, doesn't matter. You've got to play everyone every time. Just get on with it. Why do people get so obsessed about when the fixtures fall? Okay. Then there's also, look, Sunderland need to be wary of the fact that, what you might regard as mid-ranking Premier League teams, so Brentford in the second home game being a very good example, are very good teams. Brentford at home is a fair bit different to Rotherham at home. So, all of that is tied up in this. But all things being equal, I still think as a newly promoted team, A, being at home on the first day, massive. B, not playing a team that were in the top 9 in last season's Premier League in any of your first 4 matches, I think that's big because the reality is if you start Liverpool at home, Man City away, Arsenal at home, Tottenham away, whatever, maybe not Tottenham's the best example, but you know what I'm getting at, then there's a very, very, very good chance you're going into the middle of September without a point on the board. And all right, the fixtures will then start getting a bit easier, but the pressure just ratchets up and ratchets up. Now, Sunderland could still lose their first 3 games. This is the Premier League. And clearly, if that was to happen, alarm bells will be ringing. But if they were going to really hit the ground running and maybe get 5 points out the first 9, 6 out the first 12, something like that, then this type of fixture list has undoubtedly given them the best chance of doing it. And that's not being willfully disrespectful of a West Ham or a Burnley or a Brentford or whoever, but it is to acknowledge that they could have had a much, much, much tougher start. And like I say, I just think being at home on that first day is really big as well because the atmosphere inside the Stadium of Light's going to be absolutely bouncing. They're going to be bang up for it. On paper, it feels like one of the more winnable games that they're going to have at home all season. So, get stuck into it, get 3 points on the board, and that can make a massive difference then to how the rest of the season pans out.
Well, you saw it with Southampton last season. It felt like they were on the back foot and playing catch-up, really, from the off. And they never recovered, did they? They absolutely never recovered. Now, Southampton were never good enough to get anywhere near to staying in the Premier League, clearly. But if you have a nightmare start in terms of the fixtures and you have 1 point on the board after 5 games, and Sunderland might, we'll get them. They might find that the jump is too big. I don't think they will. I think they'll pick up points from those games. But if you have that sort of start, straight away you risk losing all the momentum from your promotion. You risk the questions setting in early doors about, not necessarily within the Sunderland fan base, but from the outside, is Regis Lebris cut out for the Premier League? Are these players ready for the Premier League? Was the step too early? All this sort of thing comes, doesn't it? If you manage to get even just a win on the board, I think what you realise when you get up the Premier League and you fight to stay up is just how important and how big every win is.
Yeah.
If you get a win on the board in the first 3 games, that just lifts the place and takes the pressure off so much, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
On that West Ham game, I haven't looked at the odds. What do you think the odds will be?
Well, West Ham will be favourites, won't they? I think West Ham will be evens money, maybe.
Yeah.
Evens money favourites. Sunderland somewhere about 21-10. Same price the draw. Could see around that. Sunderland are not going to start favourites.
No.
That game, I just don't see it. And that's probably fair. I mean, we talk about West Ham, but as I was making the point, I think in a previous vid, while West Ham feel like one of the teams Sunderland could realistically target as dropping into the bottom 3, they've got Jared Bowen, they've got Lucas Paquetá, they've got players who would walk into, a number of Premier League teams, certainly any Championship team. So, but I still come back to they're not Liverpool, they're not Man City, they're not Arsenal. Those would have been much, much tougher tasks. So, I think Sunderland have every right to be looking at this thinking, do you know what? We were backing ourselves anyway, but we certainly back ourselves now. We can make a decent start to this. And then we go from there because clearly, as fans have also been pointing out, there are really difficult sections of that fixture list not too far around the corner that it's almost certainly going to be a lot tougher to pick up points from. So it's an easy thing to say, and I know fans have been saying, I think we'll learn an awful lot from that first month. Those first 4 or 5 games, I think that will be probably a very realistic barometer of where Sunderland are at. Because, let's be honest, if Sunderland do take 1 point from the first 5 with the way the fixture list's fallen, then you would absolutely fear for them. If, though, they can take what we've been talking about, get a couple of wins, and, show that they're capable of competing at this level, then they can get on from there. I don't think it'll take us very long this season to get a pretty good gauge of where Sunderland are actually at.
Yeah, I was going to say that. You touched on it there because for all we've said there, it's a really presentable and appealing start. If you get through West Ham, Burnley, Brentford, Crystal Palace, I mean, Villa and Forest a bit tough, but West Ham, Burnley, Brentford, Crystal Palace, let's say, the first 4 games, if you get through them with 1 point on the board, then
it's a worry. Yeah,
it's a worry, and it puts the pressure then on the big games to come in. So I guess there's 2 ways to look at it. But there's that is absolutely glass half empty approach, isn't it? I think natural response is that's a good start for Sunderland.
That's a good start. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you could have wished for much better, could you? It gives you the chance to hit the ground running, and that's all you can really ask for in Sunderland's position. Now let's see if they can go out and do it. And that first day is good. Yeah, I like the fact actually that it's Saturday 3:00 as well. I know we said there's a good chance Sky will want it and all of this, but and start the season on the Friday night, yeah, fine. But I like the fact that first game back is a Saturday 3:00 home game at the stadium. I like that will feel like a real occasion. That.
And when you were saying at the start there about those who say it's 38 games you play every team once, well, what about poor people like us? What about twice? What about poor people like us who have podcasts and whatever else?
Yeah, exactly.
Rambled about for the last 2 weeks.
Exactly.
December, Liverpool away, Man City away, Newcastle home, Brighton away, Leeds home, Man City home. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, you know what I was saying? That somewhere around the corner there's a more difficult run. Can't imagine if they'd been the first 4 games. Yeah, I mean, it looks brutal, doesn't it? Let's not beat around the bush. I mean, Liverpool and Man City away. What isn't this space about 4 days? I know they'll probably get moved. That's one thing that we do have to get out Liverpool for in the Premier League. These games, we know roughly where they're going to fall on the calendar now, but at the minute, these actual dates mean absolutely nothing. It's even worse than the Championship used to be. But, I mean, my God, what a week that is. I think, Dom, if they can take 6 points from those games, then the derby, I mean, coming up, Newcastle obviously have a Champions League game that week, which I know it's it's minor things, but that might play in Sunderland's favour. We shall see. And then, yeah, I mean, Brighton away. That's the Saturday before Christmas, isn't it? So you better have your Christmas shopping done well before then, because that's a canny old schlep on the weekend before Christmas. But then at home over Christmas, which
Leeds 27, Leeds December 27th, that class fixture. That
and Sky have said that some games will get switched to Boxing Day, some games will get switched to New Year's Day. The only day, Christmas Day, obviously, but the only day where the league have categorically said there won't be games this year is Christmas Eve.
Right.
So Sunderland Leeds potentially has the makings of a Boxing Day game, doesn't it? But even if it's on the 27th, it'll be that'll be a good old game, that.
And just finally, then, because as I say, we can't dissect every period, but the running, the final game. Well, clearly at this stage we have no idea how these teams are going to be faring. But the last 6: Villa away, Forest home, Wolves away, Man United home, Everton away, Chelsea home. Now, clearly there are big challenges in there. Villa away, Everton away is never easy, but Chelsea home on the last day of the season, there's every chance Chelsea are going to be fighting for something. But it could be worse.
Again, I think finishing at home is always helpful if you need something. There's so much water's got to pass under the bridge. But I think if you were just totally blind, given the option, I think you'd want to start at home and finish at home, which is what Sunderland are doing. That feels like it could be beneficial if they need something. It's a long old wait to get that first trip to Everton's new stadium, isn't it? That's obviously the last away game. I mean, going into the season blind, if you were to write down 5 teams or 6 teams that Sunderland could realistically, feel might finish in the bottom 3 and hence enable Sunderland to survive, well, Everton would be one of those teams, wouldn't they?
And I think Wolves might well be another, and that's the penultimate away game.
Yeah, so both of them could potentially be absolutely massive, but clearly there's a hell of a lot of football to be played between now and then. But I do think, like I say, home on the last day is what you'd want, I think.
Transfers then. Some interesting stuff from Kristjaan Speakman this week, who spoke this week. Obviously, the transfer window is now open again. Sunderland have signed Enzo Lafay. They've sold Joe Bellingham, which obviously we knew both really was going to happen early doors. Speakman said this week, what we need to do now is go on the next part of our journey and think about establishing ourselves over the next 3 or 4 years at Premier League level, and hopefully build to a point where we can be involved towards the top end of the league, which is ultimately where we all want to be. We're trying to recruit players for that. I've spent the last 3 days in 3 different countries speaking with players and agents. I landed back in England at about 2 a.m. last night, so the work behind the scenes is up and running and has been for a number of weeks. Like, first of all, before we get into it, on a fan, as a football fan, like that sort of talk is so exciting, isn't it? Like jetting about and speaking to agents, the unknown of where he's been.
Get on Sky Scanner, plane tracker, and see where planes landed at 2 a.m. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It is, isn't it? And it's all part of the anticipation of building up to the new season.
Yeah, absolutely. So he was speaking at the Foundation of Lights Fixtures Breakfast, which is the annual kind of event that they do on Fixture Release Day in aid of the Foundation. I mean, I don't think it's any surprise that he's been flying here, there, and everywhere abroad and speaking to people. We obviously had the sit down with him off the back of the season, and as I think we kind of talked through on the last bid, there will be tweaks to the model. And there will, I think there is undoubtedly an acceptance that you need a different type of player in the Premier League. You need a different level of player. But as we've said, Sunderland are not going to be signing 31-year-olds from the Premier League because they don't think there's any value in it whatsoever. They're going to be signing players who they think are currently underpriced or undervalued, either because they're coming from somewhere where is a bit more off the beaten track, or they're at a stage of their career where there's still an awful lot of development potential and Sunderland think they can make them better. I don't think it's any surprise that that probably means abroad for a lot of Sunderland's targets. Not exclusively necessarily, but I don't think it's a shock to anyone that the markets that they feel have benefited them in the last 2-3 years, that's where they're going to be looking at again. You've obviously got the European under-21s going on at the moment. Sunderland being linked with a number of players there. Cresswell, obviously, the Ukrainian striker who definitely feels like there's real substance to Sunderland being interested there. So it doesn't surprise me one bit that that's the kind of messaging that we're getting from where the club are looking at the moment. It's going to be interesting to see at what stage that those kind of deals get done, because it feels like we're in a, and this isn't just Sunderland, this is right across the board. It feels like we're in a funny little in-between period, if you like, at the minute, where there's been that flurry in the first kind of transfer window from clubs involved in the Club World Cup and stuff. We'll probably get a little bit of a flurry towards the end of this month from Premier League clubs who need to sell for PSR reasons. That's one to keep an eye on. Will Sunderland look to get involved in that? Probably not, because I think the clubs who need to bring in money will be selling players for pretty high value players that they need to get the PSR clearance on, and every other club in the Premier League is probably going to be interested in them. So I don't necessarily think we'll see a lot there, but obviously winning the playoffs is fantastic, isn't it? It's a great way to go up, but it does put you that little bit behind everyone else in terms of timings. And it makes it more difficult because, as Kristjaan Speakman freely admitted, Sunderland had been kind of dual track approach, targets for the Premier League, targets for the Championship. So to a certain extent, they're probably still playing catch up a little bit. So be interesting. Ideally, Regis Labris will want as many players in for the start of pre-season as he can. Every manager at every club in the world will say that. Doesn't normally work like that, does it? But I think Sunderland will probably want to have at least started making some headway with actual signings and getting bodies through the door before pre-season starts in about 3 weeks now.
Especially we know with what the Brees is like, he was quite demanding, and if they're coming to play in the Premier League for the first time, that adaptation period as well, isn't it? They
need to see what Gateshead and South Shields are like.
The famous double header. we haven't determined yet who's doing which one yet, have we? I think
we haven't.
I've done Gateshead the last two.
No.
I remember last year at Gateshead, and it was an indicator looking back really of what was to come in the transfer window, because we asked for a player after the game, obviously, and the guy from the press team who was there that day had said, "Yeah, who do you want?" Jack Clark, expected the obvious response. "Yeah, no bother, we'll get you." Really? Obviously asked him about the transfer stuff, and he was pretty open about it. But our first chance to speak to new signings and whatever else. And
it's always they're good days. They're good days.
Yeah, absolutely.
You always feel that you look forward to them so much, and then you watch the football for 10 minutes, and you're like, "Oh my god, this is pre-season, isn't it?" But it's all part of the fun. It's all part of the fun.
By the time pre-season's come to an end, you're gagging for it to finish, aren't you?
I suspect there'll be a right old exodus on the old LNER for the Edinburgh trip for that game for Tynecastle. That'll be good.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're the
day out ones.
Yeah, they're the appealing ones, aren't they? Yeah. But yeah, come the end of pre-season, you're just ready for it. You're just gagging for the proper stuff. For the proper stuff. Well, the proper stuff will soon roll around. Do let us know what you think of the fixtures. Do let us know what you think about what we've been chuntering away about here for the last 20 minutes or so by getting involved in the comments. As we said at the start, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you listen on your podcast platforms, then rate and review. And we'll be back next week on our next episode of We Are Sunderland. Take care.